I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to stop the matrix. The matrix begins when your opponent moves their pawn in front of the king up 2 squares, to which if you are playing black, you respond by moving your e-pawn up 2 squares so the pawns are facing each other. Now if the queen moves out to h5, then you'll know that your opponent is trying the matrix. Now over here in the upper right hand corner, you'll see what's called my analysis, which tells you which moves are the best. And I'm only doing the top 2 moves, number 1 and number 2. And when you look, the number 1 move is moving the knight to c6. What that means is that you would move this knight here that's on b to this square right here, which is c6. And the reason why you want to move that knight is because it protects that pawn right there on e5. It keeps the queen from capturing it. Now the very next move for white in order to do the matrix is moving the bishop to c4. And when white moves the bishop to c4, it makes 2 pieces attacking the f7 square. And if white moves the queen to that square on f7, it's checkmate against the king, and white wins the game. So black needs to stop white's queen from moving to the f7 square. So once your b knight gets onto the square c6, then if you look at the upper right hand corner, g6 is the next best move. And so when you move to g6, that black pawn attacks the queen, and the queen moves out of the way. Now if you look, the number 1 move for white, if you look at the top, is queen to d1. So if white brings the queen back to d1, black is still ahead in this game, and now there's no longer a threat for the matrix. What many chess players do, though, instead, is they move the queen here to f3. And if white moves to f3, then white can still do the matrix by moving the queen to f7. And again, if the queen gets to f7, it would be a matrix and checkmate, and the game would be over. So what black does to stop that is takes the other knight and moves it to f6. And now the white queen cannot get to the f7 square, and the matrix is stopped. We're going to take the matrix just a little bit further, because sometimes when white has a queen out in the game, sometimes it can be hard for chess players to know how to stop that queen, and the queen can do a lot of damage in the game. So I'm going to show you how to take care of that queen to make sure that she doesn't bother you anymore in the game, at least not until the game gets pretty late. What most chess players would do in this position, if they were white, would be to take the knight and move it to c3. And here is my advice to chess players. When your opponent brings the queen out too early in the game, I recommend to chess players to attack the queen, because what that does is it makes white spend a lot of time moving the queen out of the way, and more time for black to get strong pieces into the board. And you can see the number 1 move here for black is moving the knight to d4. So if I take the knight and move it to d4, it attacks the white queen. And you can see there's only 2 moves that are really good for white, and that is queen to d1, which is back where the queen started, or queen to d3. And if the queen moves to d3, right there, you can see that black still has an advantage. And what black is going to do is move up this d pawn to attack both of these at the same time. And the way to do that is by moving the c pawn up. Now, and then eventually black is going to move the pawn here to d5, attacking these pieces with pawns. But I want to go back and say, what if the queen doesn't move to either one of those squares? Let's say that the queen instead moved to this square right here on e3. If the queen moves to e3, after that position, then black has a really sneaky move. It's called a royal family fork. And what black does is it moves the knight to the square c2. And if the knight moves to c2, then it attacks the rook, the king, and the queen all at the same time. And since the king is in check, the king has to move out of the way, and then it allows black to take the queen for a knight. And look at the score now, -11. So black's in the lead by a lot in that position. Let's say that black or white doesn't move to the e3 square, but instead moves to the square g3. Well, it's not a royal family fork, but black can still move to the c2 square and attack both the king and the rook of white at the same time. So again, the king is in check, the rook is being attacked, so when the king moves out of the way, black gets a free rook and is ahead over here, you can see, by 3 points. Now, the positions I showed you are only if the queen moves to f3. We talked about the queen moving all the way back to d1, which is the best move, but there are some other things that white can do to mess up the game. Or to mess up, its own game. What if white was to move to this square or this square right here? Do you think that would be good? And the answer is no, because the black queen is protecting those squares. So if the white queen moved to either one of those squares, black would be able to take it on the very next move. What if white were to move to this square or this square? Would those be good moves? And again, the answer is no. Let's say that white moved to this square here, g4. If we look in the upper right-hand corner, we have a score of -5, which means black is ahead. And what black would do is move the pawn up to d5. And by moving to d5, there is now an attack on the white queen, the white pawn, and the white bishop. When the queen moves out of the way, the black pawn can take the black bishop and is now ahead by 6 points. Same thing happens if the white queen moves up to h3. Let's see, what if the white queen were to move to e2 instead? The queen moves to this square, which is e2, then black can move the knight to d4, attacking the queen, and then queen moves here. We've got a royal family fork against these pieces right here. The queen can't move to f3 because if it does move to f3, the knight will take it right away. And if the queen moves to any other square along that white line, it'll be the same thing as like the moves that we had talked about before. If the queen moves right here, all that has to happen is that the d pawn moves up too, and then the queen has to move out of the way, in which the pawn will be able to take the white bishop. And finally, the white queen couldn't move all the way to h5, because if it did, then the pawn would just take it.